She asked me while sitting on the floor in front of me, holding her toy and looking up at my face. "Grandma, did Grandpa love you?" The question was simple, childlike, but it hit me straight in the chest. I went quiet, not because I didn't have an answer, but because I had too many. I looked at her and saw myself when I was young, before I understood that some things we call love are really pain wrapped in silence. I said to her, "Come sit next to me, sweetheart." She did. She rested her head on my lap, and I felt something move inside me, something I thought had died a long time ago. I am 79 years old now. My body is tired. The doctors say the illness is part of my daily life now. Colon cancer. A heavy word. But heavier than that is knowing my body had been screaming long before it got sick. My granddaughter didn't understand all of that. She just felt that something was hidden inside me. She said, "Mom says you were always strong." I smiled. People often misunderstand what strength means. Strength is not always endurance. Sometimes, strength is saying no. But I never said no. I married young. I was small, happy, and I thought marriage was safety. My husband looked respectable. He spoke carefully. He knew how to make people laugh. In the beginning, he was good. Or maybe I wanted to see him that way. The first time I felt something was wrong, it wasn't betrayal. It was a feeling. Absence without explanation. Phone calls that ended suddenly. A smile that wasn't meant for me. I told myself, men are like that. Maybe it's work. Maybe I'm imagining things. And the first time I knew he had cheated on me, I did nothing. I didn't scream. I didn't confront him. I didn't leave. I stayed silent. Not because I wasn't hurting, but because I was afraid. Afraid of losing the house. Afraid of my reputation. Afraid of children who hadn't even been born yet. The first betrayal hurts, but the ones that follow break you. And he cheated again and again, and I kept telling myself, endure. It's not the end of the world. All homes are like this. I buried the pain inside me and smiled for the world. People used to say, "What a calm, stable home." They didn't know that calm was a grave. I slept next to him and felt alone. I cooked and tasted bitterness in my mouth. I laughed in front of the children and cried silently in the bathroom. Every time I told myself, this is the last time I'll let it pass, and every time I let it pass. My granddaughter was playing with my hands when she suddenly asked, "Grandma, are you sad?" That small question broke something inside me. I said, I was. She asked, "What about now?" That was the moment I realized maybe it was finally time to speak, not to complain, but so she wouldn't repeat my life. I told her, "You know, sweetheart, many women get sick not because their bodies are weak, but because their hearts grow tired." At first, I didn't connect the illness to the betrayal. I thought it was fate, genetics, destiny. But when I sat alone during chemotherapy nights, with pain and silence, I remembered every time I swallowed my words. Every time I said, "Not now, be patient, for the children." My body couldn't stay patient. The pain that never came out as illness. Sitting there with my granddaughter, I realized for the first time that I didn't want to die with my secret still inside me. I said to her, "Grandpa made mistakes, and I stayed silent." She looked at me confused and asked, "Why?" That question should have been asked long ago. Why did I stay silent? Why did I choose to live broken instead of living alone? The answer isn't simple, but it's honest. Because I was raised to believe that a woman who endures is a good woman, that the home matters more than your dignity, that your pain doesn't matter as long as everything looks fine from the outside. But the truth is, pain that stays buried rots. And now I am paying the price of a lifetime of silence. My granddaughter moved closer and said, "Grandma, I love you." And those words brought back a feeling I had forgotten, that there is still time to tell the truth, even if it comes late. I didn't find out all at once. There was no dramatic moment, no shouting, no proof placed in my hands. It came slowly, the way truth often does. At first, it was just small things. A shirt that smelled different, phone calls he took outside, a new attention to his appearance that wasn't for me. I noticed. Of course I noticed. Women always notice. We just learn how to explain things away. I told myself he was tired. I told myself work was stressful. I told myself I was imagining things because I was afraid. Fear can be very convincing. The first real sign came one evening when he came home late. Not late in a normal way, late in a careful way. He didn't look at me when he walked in. He went straight to the bathroom. He spoke kindly, but not warmly. That night he slept quickly, too quickly. I lay next to him, awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to my own thoughts get louder. I didn't accuse him. I didn't ask questions. Because once you ask, you can't pretend anymore. A few weeks later, I answered the phone. A woman's voice. She paused when she heard mine. She asked for him by name. Then she hung up. That was enough. I didn't need details. I didn't need proof. My body knew before my mind accepted it. When he came home that night, I looked at him differently. Not with anger, with disappointment. And he knew. Men always know when you know. He didn't deny it. He didn't confess either. He said, "You're imagining things." I nodded. That was the moment I chose silence. Not because I believed him, but because I didn't know what would happen if I spoke. I was young. I had no money of my own, no place to go, no one telling me it was okay to leave. I had been raised to believe that a woman holds the family together, that breaking the home was worse than breaking yourself. So I swallowed it. I told myself it was one mistake, a moment of weakness, something that wouldn't happen again. That lie was easier to live with than the truth. But it did happen again, and again. Sometimes I knew for sure, sometimes I just felt it. The late nights returned, the distance grew, the silence between us became thick. Each time I had a choice, speak or stay, and each time I stayed. People think silence is passive. It isn't. Silence is an active decision you make every day. I stayed because I was afraid of being alone. I stayed because I didn't want my children to grow up without a father. I stayed because I didn't want people asking questions. But mostly, I stayed because I had been taught that enduring was my duty. I told myself, this is marriage. No one has a perfect husband. At least he comes home. Those sentences became my shield. Every time the pain rose, I pushed it back down. I became very good at smiling, very good at acting normal. I hosted family gatherings. I cooked meals. I laughed at jokes. Inside, I was shrinking. The worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was what it did to my voice. I stopped trusting my feelings, stopped trusting my instincts. Every time I felt hurt, I asked myself if I was being dramatic. Every time I wanted to speak, I told myself it wasn't worth it. Silence became my language, and my body listened. At night, I felt tight in my chest. I had stomach pain I couldn't explain. I felt tired in a way sleep didn't fix. Doctors said stress. They told me to rest. I rested my body, but I never rested my heart. Sometimes he would be kind. That confused me the most. Kindness makes betrayal harder to face because it gives you hope. Hope kept me quiet longer than fear ever could. I waited for him to change, for him to choose me fully. Years passed that way. By the time I understood that he wasn't going to change, I no longer recognized myself. I had become a woman who survived everything by saying nothing. People praised me for my patience. They called me strong. They didn't see that my strength was slowly killing me. The day I finally admitted the truth to myself was not the day I confronted him. It was the day I realized my silence had become my illness. But that understanding came late, much later. Back then, I only knew one thing. Speaking felt dangerous. Silence felt familiar. So I chose what I knew, and my body carried the cost. The illness didn't announce itself. It didn't arrive with drama. It came quietly, the same way everything else in my life had. At first, it was stomach pain, the kind you ignore, the kind you explain away. I told myself it was stress, food, age. I had spent my whole life ignoring pain. This felt familiar. Then the pain stayed. It followed me through my days. It woke me at night. It made me tired in a way I couldn't fix. I went to doctors. They ran tests. They spoke calmly. And then one day, a doctor sat across from me and said the word, cancer, colon cancer. He said it gently, as if volume might change meaning. I nodded. I surprised myself by how calm I was. I had already lived with something eating at me for many years. This one just had a name. Chemotherapy is lonely. People think it's about pain. It is. But more than that, it's about time. You sit, you wait, you think. You remember things you never had time to remember before. Lying there, watching the drip, I started seeing patterns. Every ache in my body felt connected to a moment I had swallowed. Every sickness felt like a sentence I never finished. I thought about all the times my body warned me. The tight chest, the stomach knots, the exhaustion. My body had spoken for me when I refused to speak for myself. That thought stayed with me. One afternoon, my granddaughter came to visit me. She climbed onto the hospital chair and held my hand. She said, "Grandma, are you going to be okay?" Children don't ask to hear lies. They ask because they're ready for truth. I said, "I don't know." She nodded. Then she said something small, something simple. "I don't want you to be sad anymore." That broke me, not loudly, quietly, because sadness had become so normal to me that I forgot it wasn't supposed to be. When I came home from the hospital, we sat together one evening.
She was coloring. I was tired. She looked up and said, "Grandma, why didn't you ever leave?" There it was, the question I avoided my whole life. I took a deep breath. I said, "Because I was afraid." She waited. I said, "I was afraid of being alone, afraid of change, afraid of what people would say." She thought for a moment and said, "But you were already alone." Children see truth clearly. They don't decorate it. I smiled. She was right. I told her, I thought staying was protecting everyone, but I didn't protect myself. She held my hand tighter. That night, after she slept, I stayed awake thinking about how many women live like I did. Quiet, enduring, calling pain patience. I realized something then. My cancer was not just bad luck. It was a message I ignored for years. A body can only carry so much silence. I don't blame my husband anymore. Blame is heavy. I blame the story I was taught. The story that said a good woman sacrifices herself, that silence is strength, that leaving is failure. That story made me sick. Now I don't have much time left. I feel it, not in fear, in clarity. So this is what I want to say. To my granddaughter, you are allowed to speak. You are allowed to leave. You are allowed to choose yourself without feeling guilty. Love should not make you disappear. If you are hurting, that pain matters. And to whoever is listening, if your body is tired, listen. If your heart feels heavy, listen. If you are staying silent to keep peace, ask yourself whose peace you are protecting. Do not wait for illness to give you permission to tell the truth. Do not confuse endurance with love. I waited too long, but maybe my waiting can save you time. I am 79 years old. I have lived a quiet life. Now I am telling the truth out loud, and that finally feels like healing.